That Man and His Manga.
Hello and welcome to That Man, and this is the top 12 light novels I started reading in 2021. But before we get into all of that, if you're new to the channel and love all things manga and collecting, from figures to anime and light novels, do me a favour and subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss out on new weekly videos. The first title we're going to talk about is one that has been around for quite some time. However, I never really got into it, and the reason being is, well, I missed the anime, and by the time I got into light novels, they were all out of print. Fortunately, Yen Press, on the announcement that this would get a further volume, went out and re-released the entire back catalogue of the Haruhi series. And you know what? It is so worth the hype. I absolutely adored the first volume of this one, and I couldn't wait to read more. And I'm not gonna lie, I was really surprised at how good this was. I wasn't sure of whether it was going to be for me. I tend to find a lot of these series that revolve around kids being kids in schools don't really hit the mark, and I'm not gonna lie, I had a different idea of what Haruhi was compared to what it actually became, and it was a welcome surprise. Now, at the moment, I've only read 6 of the volumes in question, and I'm not gonna lie, it does have its ups and downs. Some of the volumes aren't particularly amazing, while others push what I love about light novels. And I'm thankful for that. It's one that I'm really glad that I did get the chance to read, and one that I'm looking forward to finishing off in 2022. The next title is one that I was genuinely surprised at how much I loved. I kind of written it off as a bit of an ecchi title when I first laid eyes on it. However, I really enjoyed the volume itself, and that title is Dungeon Busters. Now, this is one that I did cover more in depth on a separate video, so if you guys want a full review on it, make sure you check it out. I will leave a link in the comments section below, so check it out after you've checked out the rest of this video. Now, Dungeon Busters is an interesting title in that it has an everyday man discovers a dungeon in his back garden, and he clears that dungeon. He managed to take it on, and well, he gets the first encounter bonus, and that bonus basically puts him somewhat in control of the dungeons and their fate. Now, he discovers that after a few years, all of the dungeons will open up and all of the monsters will come out and kill everybody, so it's up to him and everybody else to clear all of the dungeons. Also included is a card-based gacha system, which includes the 108 Stars of Destiny. Now, this has all of the things that you would expect in other series, and what I really liked about this was a rather adult take on it. Now, this series is incredibly political, and a lot of people don't like the fact that it pretty much says, well, this is America, and kind of pokes fun at them. And a lot of other things that kind of come in is not going to be to everybody's tastes. But I really enjoyed the fact that it was an actual adult's perspective on this whole being overpowered, taking on dungeons and having to clear them. They turn it all into a business, and they get more and more of these cards, which they use to do unique things with. If you want an interesting, slightly overpowered character, plenty of political intrigue, and a fun dungeon busting with plenty of hilarious moments and plenty of ecchi in it, you're going to have a good time with this particular title. Definitely check it out if it's one that you are interested in. The next title is one that just recently started, and it's one that I really enjoyed the first volume of. It's also one that, surprisingly, I kind of just forgot all about by the time I finished it, and I haven't checked out any further volumes, which is kind of good because I only just found out the other day that no further volumes have actually been released as of yet. But don't let that put you off, because Spy Classroom is a rather good series. In fact, it's one of those series that I kind of was unsure of how good it would be, and this is going to be a running theme because of my status reading that many light novels. I'm getting very unsure about a lot of titles where I might read them and just be like, oh well, I'm not really that fussed about them, or oh, this is surprisingly nice. But Spy Classroom is what you would expect. It is kind of like Assassination Classroom, only more with spies. So if you want a classroom full of spies who all turn out to be cute girls, then you're probably going to have a good time with it. Now, again, this is another one where it's not to be everyone's liking. I think it doesn't really sell the fact that it is the whole kind of girls doing spy things as well as it should, but in my opinion, it was one that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed Volume 1. It was a lot of fun. It introduced a lot of the fun characters. I'm really hoping that Volume 2 onwards does expand on that a little bit more and makes it one of the greats. I have heard nothing but good things about this one, so I am rather hopeful. In the anime community, there's always one title that I always feel gets a little bit of an unfair disadvantage, and it's one that basically showcases the absurdity of light novels. That title is Reincarnated as a Vending Machine, I Now Wander the Dungeon. And for most people who have read it, they all think it's an actual pretty okay series. It's actually one that a lot of people were really upset that we kind of got 3 volumes and we haven't seen anything since. And I'm not going to lie, it is one of the series that I would love to see more of. However, when 7 Seas announced the author's new title, The NPCs in this village sim must be real, I couldn't wait to try it out, and I wasn't disappointed. And this one absolutely deserves to be on my list of favourite titles that I started reading last year, because this title was pretty darn interesting. It's about a young man who he doesn't really do much with his life. As you can imagine, it's a light novel, happens all the time. However, he soon gets a mysterious game to beta test, and he discovers that the NPCs in this game seem rather realistic. They have, well, interesting thoughts about them, and yeah, it's almost as if they're too real. And of course, it turns out that they basically are, and I really like that. And I wasn't sure about it, but much like in the vending machine title, there's a lot of really good world building in here, and there's a lot of interesting characters. In fact, this actually goes above and beyond with its character development, even in just Volume 1. Now, one of the things I do need to mention is that don't look too far ahead. I actually went to pre-order the further volumes in this and kind of got spoiled in the end of Volume 2, so be very careful if you are looking into it, because the spoilers around this one are all over the place. Go into it blind and enjoy it, because it really is worth your time, and I think you guys might enjoy it. The next title we're going to talk about is another one that is in my top 50 light novels, and it's one that I really am looking forward to going back to, and that title is The Apothecary Diaries. I hope I pronounced that right. It doesn't matter, it's still a great title. Now, this is one that, again, I wasn't too sure about, but it started making waves on the internet, and I thought I'd try it out, and I wasn't disappointed. This one was absolutely fantastic, that I just couldn't stop reading it. However, I did kind of stop reading it after Volume 1 and never picked up anything further. I do own Volume 2 and Volume 3, I just haven't had the chance to read it because there's been plenty of other titles. And I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of hoping that this one does get a physical release, so I can at least pick it up and read it that way, because J-Novel Club, they do those fantastic physical releases, but they just don't do it for everything, and I hope that this one is one that does eventually come out. If you like political and if you like historical titles with a strong female lead, this one needs to be on your to-read list. You won't be disappointed. title is another one that I recently covered on the channel, and it's another one that I wasn't sure about at first, but the twist at the end of Volume 1 just had me hooked, and since then I really came to enjoy it. Now, as I'm recording this video, I am actually reading Volume 4, and that title is Reign of the Seven Spellblades. Now, much like in my bigger review, which you can of course check out at the end of this video, this one is interesting because a lot of series are based off other things. In fact, a lot of light novels are inspired by Tolkien or Dragon Quest. Now, this one really goes more of a certain magical series, a certain series called Harry Potter, and this is about a bunch of young kids go to magical school. However, the magical school isn't wonderful and magical and happy like in Harry Potter. No, it's miserable. In fact, they're pretty much torturing half of them. It's very dark and very grim, but it's Harry Potter with samurai and knights. And you know what? I really enjoyed it. It is one that, while I say, oh, it's like Harry Potter, it's kind of its own thing. And even if you don't like Harry Potter, I would recommend checking it out because it is worth your time. It is a lot of fun. It does have a lot of unique aspects. I really enjoyed the twist on Volume 1, and yeah, that's as much as I'm going to say. So keep with it for one volume. If you don't want to read more after Volume 1, then you've at least just read Volume 1, I suppose. The next title we're going to talk about is an oldie, but don't rule it out, it's still a good title. And this is one that I was really excited for J Novel Club to announce, and couldn't wait to get the collector's edition of the first 3 volumes. And that title is Slurs. Now, this is of course an older title. It is one of the earlier light novels, and it does read a little bit different to what you would expect a modern light novel to read. But it's still a lot of fun, and it really took me back to a lot of nostalgic moments with reading this series. I really enjoyed the series when it first came out on the anime, and reading this just provoked a lot of nostalgia, and I really am thankful for that. Now, I don't want to kind of put people off if they haven't already read it. It still is a fantastic series in its own right. Lena is a fantastic, hilarious female protagonist, and it's one that I think a lot of people will get some mileage out of. Everybody will be different, and some people might not enjoy it as others, but if you want a fun fantasy title that is a little bit older and kind of inspired a few other titles, then you want to be checking this one out. It's a lot of fun and well worth your time. The next title we're going to talk about is one that I am actually currently doing a bigger video on, and it's one that I feel like I could talk about to no end. Now, this is a title that had an anime a few years ago, and a lot of people were hyped about it. Fortunately, it actually got a season 2 last year, which I don't think I heard anybody talking about, which was pretty criminal. Now, a lot of titles go on about having an isekai. Now, this one is an isekai, but it's also a food title. In fact, it's kind of a little bit more like a reverse isekai, in that, well, it's kind of its own little thing. The restaurant to another world. Now, this is first and foremost a food series. It's about a restaurant. However, all of its patrons are, well, witches, elves, vampires, lizardmen, dwarves, dragons. They're all unique, and that's what makes this work. In fact, this is an interesting title because it is a lot of smaller titles. Each chapter is themed around a food. However, you'll start off and you'll get a picture into somebody's life, whether it be a familiar face that we already know from the restaurant or somebody new. They'll stumble upon the doorway to this restaurant to another world and go in. They'll order something off the menu, will get essentially a food porn description of the food. They'll eat the fill and their life will be changed forever, because food has that power. Now, I've done a very quick analysis of the series itself, and I think it's one that you guys would absolutely love. Now, you do kind of have to be happy with having a series that talks about a lot of different food, but you get an absolutely incredibly well done title which has tons of character and world building in there, along with tons of food. The next title we're going to talk about is one that I actually just read recently. I was unsure about it because it just recently got an anime adaptation and a lot of people were quite harsh on it. And it's one that people have recommended me to check out for quite some time over the last few years. And I thought, you know what, I'll give it a shot. It can't be too bad, and I've had Volume 1 purchased for a few years now. So I started reading The Far Away Paladin. And I'm not gonna lie, I was blown away at how good this series actually was. Now, I feel like a lot of things kind of happened with this one, and I don't really want to get too much into it. A lot of people started claiming things, and I don't know, I wanted to give it its own merits. A lot of people said, oh, it copies off another series, and I was just kind of like, does it? Does it really? I mean, there's some similarities, but yeah, a lot of other series have that kind of theme, and a lot of them also do it well. And at the end of the day, if something is inspired by something else, perfectly fine. But if it does its own thing and is good at doing it, even better. That's what we look for. We look at somebody to lay the foundations, and we look at people to try and do their own thing or possibly even improve on it. Now, The Far Away Paladin, to talk about it briefly, is another isekai. Now, don't be too alarmed. The isekai thing, while important, doesn't bog things down. This isn't another protagonist who is going to try and invent soy sauce or build a town with all of their cute girls or whatever they want to do. This is quite a grim series. It's quite a dark series about a young boy who is reincarnated into another world and starts off in the city of the dead. They are raised by, well, a ghost, a skeleton, and a mummy. And it's quite interesting because it shows that your parents are the ones who look after you. They are the ones who raise you. And then, after the end of Volume 1, he goes off into the world, meets other people, and starts to do things a little bit better while promoting a certain god. And I really enjoyed it. It was one of those ones, it reads more like a traditional fantasy, while it's an isekai that's kind of just to set things up. It is important with the particular god that he chooses, but it's not something that you're going to be kind of reminded about every 2 minutes. Oh, this is an isekai, oh, this is an isekai, because yeah, we know that a lot of series do like to do that. But Far Away Paladin is a must read. I absolutely 100% recommend it. Now, I read and binged all of the digital volumes in the space of a few days. There is a physical release coming out in a few months. I believe it might be March 2022. So don't sleep on this one. It is 100% worth your time, and make your own decision if you want to check it out. Our next series is another one that, again, I just recently covered on the channel, and it's one that I absolutely fell in love with. Again, I'll put a link in the description, go check it out at the end. You're going to have a lot of videos to check out, but to give it a quick rundown, The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten just recently had an anime announcement, so huzzah. Now, this isn't interesting, it's very cute, it's very gentle, it's very heartwarming, and it's kind of everything that I don't see normally in a cute romance. It is absolutely fantastic. A young boy and a young girl start getting closer together, and they start building a relationship between themselves, and it's all really nice about it. It's all very slow, it's all very gentle. but it feels so genuine, and there's not many series I can genuinely say feels genuine. A lot of them kind of just go for that wild fantasy ride, or that wild thing where it's like you can clearly see that the author probably hasn't spoken to too many girls, not to be too offensive. And yeah, this feels a little bit different. Like I said, all of the characters genuinely feel real. A lot of the stuff that happens in here feels very heartwarming and well thought out, and it's well worth your time, which I think I've said in all of these. But hey, this is a top 12 list. I wouldn't be saying, oh, it's not very good if I was going to be putting it in this list, would I? The next title is another one that falls under Yen Press's Yen on Identification. Now, I wasn't sure whether or not to include this as a light novel or a novel, but hey, a top 11 list isn't quite as cool as a top 12 list. So it's on here, and you know what, it is one that I absolutely want more people to check out. That title is Yokohama Station SF. Now, this is a science fiction series about what would happen if a certain Yokohama station just kept getting more additions included onto it, to the point that eventually the station itself gains sentience and basically takes over Japan. That's right, a train station takes over Japan. Now, this is a unique sci-fi, and I feel it's one that if you've seen titles such as Blame, you might get something a little bit similar to it, or even Girls Last Tour felt very kind of much like this one. And honestly, I loved it. It was such a unique read that I just couldn't help but fall in love with it. I really wanted to do a huge video on this one, but I just didn't think anybody would be interested. So I made sure that I did this video just so I could talk about this one, at least for a few minutes. And honestly, I would 100% recommend it. Yen Press have done a really nice edition of this, and it is a really interesting sci-fi story about, like I said, a train station that just continues building and building and building until it takes over the entire country. And yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff about this one. It's one that, like I said, it's a kind of post-apocalyptic kind of thing as well. It's kind of, they've got a little bit of everything in here, and I think a lot of you guys would enjoy reading it. So go check it out. My final title is one that I just took the plunge on it. I was starting to get a little bit tired of these overpowered protagonists where they're just kind of, oh yeah, I'm overpowered, but I'm going to go and destroy everything. I was also getting tired of these trapped in the game kind of things. Now, this one is a little bit of both. This does have an overpowered protagonist. However, their strength isn't what's the most powerful thing about them. It's actually their defense. That's right, my favourite title of 2021 is Bofuri, I don't want to get hurt, so I'll max out my defense. Now, in a list that includes a lot of really fantastic titles, I really genuinely struggled to pick a number one. However, what I did pick was a title that I just had so much fun with, and one that is an incredibly easy read. Now, it's not going to be to everybody's tastes, but this is another one of those cute girls do overpowered things. About a girl who, let's face it, she builds an absolutely broken build by putting all of her level up points into vitality and becomes super overpowered and impossible to hit. She also gains a lot of unique skills to the point that she becomes insanely overpowered and literally the final boss. Now, there are more and more volumes of this one, and each volume just seems to take things in a more ridiculous way, and she just becomes more and more overpowered with more unique and absolutely weird upgrades. And I just love it for it. As you guys already know, I love absolutely stupid titles, and this is certainly one of them. Really want you guys to check it out because it's one that I've just had so much fun with, I want more people to check it out, because I'm not going to lie, apart from the anime coming out and a few people who were really excited over the figure that came out recently, I don't hear anybody talking about reading this title, which is a huge shame. You can read all of this title in the space of a few hours and you'll have a lot of fun with it. It is 100% my favourite title of 2021, so you guys go check it out. That's right, I'm going to say it one more time. It's well worth your time.